I'm not going to start the video with a hello rock stars. Let's discuss this. Thank you to my channel sponsor Into the AM. As a company that believes hard work and a great product is a proper way to conduct business, I am delighted to have them as part of the channel. They have some of the coolest graphic t-shirts around and an absolute best fit and feel that has continually exceeded my expectations. With new shirts arriving all the time and other products like boxers, hats, and even a monthly shirt club, I wholeheartedly recommend them to you. Check out the link in my description of this video for an exclusive 10% off everything they sell. Now, before we get into this, a few things. First of all, thank you to my patrons for allowing me to be able to do videos just like this. I'm not going to do some big pitch. I'm not going to talk about rewards for the Patreon right now. I'm just going to say that it's because of them that I'm able to stay as independent as I am and able to say what I want to say and how I want to say it. This is kind of the proof of the pudding here. So just as an FYI on that. Additionally, before I even get into this, note that first of all, I am unscripted as always. However, this is definitely a reactionary video. God forbid I ever have to plan something like this. I would hope to never have to even make this video, nonetheless plan for it. So, you know, I'm not the most elegant person. I'm just a dude, and I talk to you guys very plainly as if I were a friend. Sadly, we can't talk amongst each other intermittently, so it's kind of like a monologue thing I'm sending to you guys and then can respond in the comments. But I'll do what I can to just speak with my actual intention and meaning here. So let's discuss this. This is Phalanx. It's a board game dev company. We'll talk about them in a moment. It says, history is happening right before our eyes. With Europe divided, you can simulate the current crisis at a strategic level and relive the events that led to it. The new Cold War, with Russia on one side and the EU and NATO on the other. Available in the USA via aresgames.eu. So let's discuss that real quick. If you didn't know, if you weren't aware, if you haven't checked the news yet, Thursday, Russia invaded the Ukraine. Now, I'm not going to make this super political or anything like that, so don't worry about that. I'll just stay on hobby. But just as an FYI, there were missile strikes, there's tanks, there's people dead. So that's kind of a thing right now. So that's kind of what this is referring to. That's just so that you know kind of the situation. Now, I made a video about, I've made a lot of videos. I made a video about my worry for people like this or companies like this, because we need to make a video. We need to make an industry that can tackle tough subjects. But, and I said in this video, you have to do it maturely. You have to do it right. When we use the death of innocent people to sell a product, I feel that's not exactly mature. That's not exactly the most mature reaction you can have of that, to see dollar signs that you can make, and a good advertising tagline that you can do when people die. When this is the opposite of what I want. I want us to cover tough subjects, but we have to be mature about it. And Phalanx apparently is not, and that's kind of too sad. So why am I making this video? Why did I decide Friday this would be my big video? I wouldn't put out a review. I wouldn't do anything like that. Why am I taking the time to do this? First of all, I can. Again, thank you to the people that support this channel so that I can. But because I firmly believe that you need to stand up and talk about it. Now, I'm going to put a quote here. This is by Elie Wiesel. I never know how to pronounce his name, so I apologize for that. I'm not going to say the whole thing. Just, we must take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Sometimes we must interfere. So you can infer my stance on this to any kind of political stance you want. You can probably guess my stance on a few things, but again, I'm not going to get into it. What I will say is that I feel people need to stand up and say something when they see something wrong, that it actually has to be an action. It can't just be taking notes to tell elsewhere. I'll give an example. I worked at a company, and there was a manager that was very antagonistic towards the female programmers, would make jokes talk down to them, not let them answer questions, overtalk them all the time. I mean, it was kind of the definition of not just mansplaining, but belittling and stuff like that. And they would do that within a group. They would do that to other people too, but especially women. And you would be there in the meeting, and they would do something like that. And you quickly make eye contact with everybody there, like, did he just say that? Was that a thing? And everybody that looks says, oh, like, you can see it in their eyes. They're like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. And then nobody stands up. And so instead, you just take notes of what's being said, and then you tell HR so that he gets a poorer review or something like that. If you want to see that in a large-scale action, you can look up the company Activision and their recent issues to see where that leads. In other words, nowhere. What needs to happen is you stand up at that meeting and say, hey, I think she was saying something. Or, hey, let's give her the floor. Or, hey, stop talking over her. You put the action down right away and you stand up and say it. Whether it's right or wrong. It's the whole story of Spider-Man, right? I mean, Spider-Man sees some guy getting mugged and is like, that's not my problem. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to put the effort to stand up if nobody else is. Everybody else is ignoring him. I'm going to too. Turned out to be Uncle Ben. Now, obviously, that's a story. But the story is supposed to teach something. So I will be the one to publicly call out Phalanx, at least. And it doesn't matter if I have 1 subscriber that's going to listen or 1,000 or more. The point is that I stood up and said it. So that's why I'm doing this video, FYI. Anyway, so with this, first of all, I really doubt Ares necessarily wants to be associated with this. So they can figure out how to respond to this. But yeah, it's kind of messy when when a company does something like this. Now, I looked on their Facebook page, which is where this was posted, and I couldn't find this. I imagine it got called out right away and deleted. But here is the picture, and I'm going to choose to assume that it wasn't photoshopped heavily, which I doubt there'd be a little reason to anyway. So let's talk about Phalanx. Now, they did the Purple Haze about Vietnam. A tough subject, a subject I think is well worth looking into as long as you're mature about it. So therein lies the issue, right? Can Purple Haze do something like, or can something like Phalanx do something like Purple Haze in a mature way? I would argue, I'm worried no before. Now I'm going to say probably not. If that's kind of their attitude towards these things, that it's just a way for them to make marketing products that they can sell and make a buck off of. That's rather unfortunate. So I'm going to link to here, and they actually linked to this review too, which is kind of surprising. This is by on Space Biff, and I'll link to this as well. Am I Happy Misery? And he reviews the game Purple Haze, and at one point he says this. This is kind of the big thing here. While the politics of nations are distant, the politics of personal behavior are close at hand. In one scenario, our soldiers were confronted with consequences of friendly fire, right? And different things happen. Another situation saw our Marines canvassing a local village. When we requested intel from the headman, he wasn't forthcoming. One of our men had learned Vietnamese. Looking over our options in the storybook, one jumped off the page. We could force the headman to cooperate by threatening to rape the village's young women. Now, again, that's mature stuff, right? I mean, now in the game, I can make the choice to threaten to rape a whole bunch of women. So what do you do with that choice? How do you handle that maturely? Well, I don't pretend to necessarily have the answers to everything, especially not off the top of my head. However, what I can say is I'm not impressed by how they handled it. In Purple Haze, my Marines threatened to rape to compel a village headman to cooperate, and the consequences was that we had better intel when at last we crept up on an enemy camp. In game terms, that meant ignoring the combat card's special ability. So, in other words, they were not designated to make a mark on something or to draw a trauma card or anything like that. Instead, you were rewarded by threatening to rape these women by having an in-game mechanic be better for you. Which doesn't show a lot of nuance and maturity about the subject matter and makes me worry already. This actually came out before. I saw this before and I didn't make a video on it. I was personally worried, and I would keep an eye on it, but with this, I think it's obvious how they are viewing people dying, people being raped, terrible atrocities in mankind's history. And it's mostly to make product and make money. So, and at the expense of it. Very unfortunate. So you can choose to react to this however you choose to do. I'm not going to tell you to do one thing or the other. I'm not going to send some attack mob or something like that, or say you should do this, you should do that. Except to say that you should think about it, and you should try and figure out how you feel about that and what your appropriate reaction to that is. For me, it's certainly saying something out loud in a video like this. I made this video as part of my reaction to me thinking about, oh, how should I react to this? I have somewhat of a platform, and it'd be terrible for me not to use it, in my opinion. So I'm going to use it for that. But I will certainly be watching Phalanx and Ares Games to see how they react to doing something kind of this bad. So anyway, that's it. This is the video. It's not a fun one. I apologize. I hope you have a better Friday after this video and not a worse one. I always want you guys to come out of my videos net positive, happy that you viewed it, happy that you watched it. I think sometimes we can be happy that we learn about something we don't like. And we're better for knowing it than, because at least then we're more informed. I hope you at least have that. Anyway, if you want to discuss, comments are open. I won't be deleting anything. I will be watching the automatic YouTube bot. Sometimes it'll mark stuff as like spam, so I'll try to look at that. Though sometimes it just nukes stuff off the face of the earth. But know that I've never once deleted a comment on my channel, ever. And so the closest I've had is when you get those bots and you report them, it automatically hides. But other than that, I've never done anything. So I would like to discuss with you guys anything you want around this subject. I'm a fairly open book. And yeah, anyway, let me know your thoughts on this, I guess. How should we react to this? I mean, I've kind of told you my thing. I'm certainly not buying their game. And I'm certainly looking pretty critically at even anyone associated with them right now. And but at the same time, I don't want companies to feel like they can't touch on subjects, that they can't make a Vietnam game because of this. Just because somebody does it poorly doesn't mean that you can't do it at all, if that makes sense. So, yeah, and an interesting and nuanced situation, much like the political sphere we live in today. Anyway, that's all I had today. So I do hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll talk to you guys again very soon about something much more pleasant, I promise. Take care, guys.